There. Welcome to the first weekly community call for the Meet and Learn Photography Group, hosted by Allison Diller. That's me. Let me go ahead and introduce what we're going to talk about this week. So I wanted to talk a little bit about getting a workflow started. I think that having a really good workflow is one of the things that can help make your photography a little, sometimes when we're getting started and we're just learning things, it can if we don't have a good workflow in place, it can make photography feel a little bit um, less interesting. It can feel a little bit like a chore. And when you have a good workflow in place, then it makes it a whole lot easier to come back because you've got a few steps that you can click, 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 click. And when you are able to do those mindlessly, sometimes if you're struggling with things like learning your editing or different things like that, then having the ability to do some mindless tasks can help you set the context for you to go ahead and jump into the more creative tasks. So the first thing I want to talk about is culling. Let me go ahead and share my screen. And I am going to share, actually, let me do the whole thing. Let's hope the windows don't, okay. Here you can see I am in Lightroom Classic, and I have imported a set of images from a photo shoot. I've just imported 20. And we're going to do two things. First off, I'm going to show how to cull my own process and the way I do it. And then I want to go into a little bit on achieving consistency in your editing. And the reason I want to talk about these things is because there's some buttons down here that maybe we don't always play around with. And I think this can be a really good introduction into some of the features that you can see in these buttons. So once you've got your photos imported into Lightroom, right now I'm in the library module, and I'm going to go ahead and close down all of the windows so that I am solely seeing the image that I'm looking at the moment. Let me take a drink, just a second. All right. So let's jump into how I'm going to approach culling these images. The first thing you note is that I've already set a flag on this. So I went and I highlighted all of the images, and I can actually, let me go ahead and expand this window and show you. So if I come in here and everything is unhighlighted, I can go ahead and highlight everything, click on the first one, and then shift click on the last one. I've got everything highlighted. And then I can right click, or on a Mac, two-finger click, and it pulls up this list of options. And I'm going to go ahead and set the flag to flagged. What that does then is I can go over here on this filter drop down, and I can select flagged, and now anything that I decide to cull out of my selection is not going to show up. And let's say, for example, I've got these 20 images, and I know for whatever purposes I want to get down to 5 images. So let me show you how I would approach that. The images that I do select and deselect in here aren't going to be representative of what I actually select. This is just for demonstration purposes. But let me go ahead and minimize this window again. And then let's say, actually, before I start culling, there's one more thing that we need to do. The next thing you're gonna want to do is go ahead and turn your caps lock button on. And this is going to allow you, I can't, there's the light. This is going to allow you, if you have your caps lock button on, you can still use these same hotkeys, but once you rate or cull your image, once you make a decision about whether to keep it or whether to pass, then you're going to have to go ahead and advance manually using the arrow keys. If you turn on your caps lock button, that will enable you to, once you decide whether you're going to keep it or get rid of it, it will automatically advance for you to the next image. All right, so let's go ahead and what are the keys that I'm going to use to do this? When I do my culling, I only do thumbs up or thumbs down, which is flagged or rejected. In order to pick an image, you're going to push the P button. And in order to get rid of an image or exit out, you're going to push the X button. So I put my index fingers on my P and my X, and it's convenient because I'm right-handed. So if I want to do something positive, I just click the P, and if I want to do something negative, then I just click my X and I get rid of things. So I'm going to just alternate PX, 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 PX. And that's what I'm going to do for this first pass. So I'm going to look at everything. I'm going to say, yep, I'm going to pick that one. Yeah, I know that's blurry. I'm just practicing here with the P and the X. So P, X, P, X. You know what? Let's go ahead and X that one and we'll switch the order. We're going to P that one, X, P, X, P. And in some subsequent sessions, I'll actually go ahead and cull some images live with you. I'll do an actual real culling. And when I do that, I'll talk a little bit about the philosophy of why I'm picking or rejecting each image, but we're going to continue with our P and our X. Okay, so now we've gotten through all 20 images. And if I pull this up, you can see because I have this filter on and I only show the flagged images, now I'm showing that I've only got 10 images. You remember I alternated half and half. All right, the next thing that we're going to do is I'm going to take and look at these in groups. So if you notice down here, images 1, 2, and 3 kind of look like they belong in a group. Images 4, 5, and 6 kind of look like they belong in a group. And then 7, 8, and 9, I didn't intend for them to be in groups of 3, but they also look like they're in a group. So what I'm going to do next is look at these in groups. In order to see multiple images, I'm going to click this button right here. And this is going to allow me to see everything that I have selected. So when I click that button right there, right now, you see that I have 10 images, and that's not quite the way I want to do it. I actually, whoops, it highlighted differently. Okay, sorry about that. Right now, I've only got one image highlighted, and the rest are not selected. So I'm going to go ahead and click on image number 1, and then shift click on image number 3, and it's going to pull them all up in kind of this film strip type view. You can also see this same view in Adobe Bridge, if that's the program you're using. It's under the film strips. But I'm going to look at these and I'm going to compare side by side. And I'm going to look and say, let's see. I think that their faces are too dark on this image on the right. So I'm going to click on that one and I'm going to click my X and it will disappear. And now I'm looking between these two and I'm debating. And for whatever reason, I feel like there's a lot more genuine emotion in this one. So I'm going to click on this one on the left and get rid of it. Now we're going to do the same thing with the next group. We're going to look at all of these. And if you remember, we saw that this first one was blurry. So I'm going to click on that and click my X and get rid of it. And now I've got 2 images here. And my first image was portrait. So I'm going to go ahead and since I can't decide between the two, I'm going to keep the portrait and we'll be able to make a triptych from this. And so I'm going to click on this first one and click my X and I've got my portrait left. Let's go to our last 3 images. And this middle one again is out of focus. And the laugh here is pretty genuine, but for some reason, I just really like this one on the right. So I'm going to click on the left and get rid of that. Now I'm down to 4 images. And then I've got this one that's kind of a behind the scenes. And I don't really actually want to work with that one either. So now I've got my 3 images that I'm going to work with for this session. If you want to go back to seeing a single image, you can click this second icon here. Or if you want to see the gallery with everything that's been selected, you can go there. Or again, if you want to compare the images that you've selected with your mouse, not that you've chosen. So when you highlight images with your mouse and you click this 4th button, this 4th icon here, you can see them all in one place. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to actually change this filter so that I can bring back some images that I I have also previously imported. Now, these three images, um, when we did the photo shoot that I am about to go ahead and play around with editing on, my vision for the photo shoot was to do some things that were kind of like Brandon Wolfel. Brandon Wolfel is the photographer for these. I think he's a fabulous photographer. I really like his style. A couple things that I notice about his style are that he's really got a mattified look. So he doesn't have really solid, dark blacks. His blacks are more of a mid-tone. So that's the first thing I notice is the mattify. I also notice a lot of lights. There's a lot of reflections that he intentionally picks up. And then the other thing I notice is his color. So he's got, excuse me, a lot of this teal. He's got some orange there and some pink. Here I see some purple and some pinkish orange. There's some more orange and a little bit of blue. And again over here, the very teal. So it's a very neon look. So those are some of the things that I'm going to try and do as I'm editing these photos. So let's get into editing. The one thing I wanted to talk about or to demonstrate is, oh, I just downloaded this, so let's go ahead and get rid of that. All right, I'm gonna go back to my flagged because I just flagged these images. Let's close that. All right, so now I know that I want to start off by getting I want to start by getting an image to kind of a baseline. Um, and so a baseline for me is going to be a very natural colors. Um, and I'm going to do a little bit of assuming here that you kind of know how to play around with some of the sliders and things. So let's go ahead and um, hide that on the left, keep like a really minimal screen. And so I'm going to first adjust my exposure and I want to get it to where it's kind of a middle of the line exposure. I don't want it to go too bright because we're going to blow out some highlights there, but let's go ahead and give it about a +1. I also noticed that when I shot this, I was shooting with um, everything looks very yellow, so I'm going to go ahead and decrease my temperature and get this to more of a cooler color. I want to notice what I notice when I'm working with people of color is that I like more of a chocolatey brown look than a yellow look. So here I notice that there's still a lot of yellows and oranges in her skin. His skin looks a little bit more chocolatey brown. I don't want to go too far because they are more mid-toned individuals rather than so they've got more of an olive complexion. So I do want to keep a little bit of the orange in there rather than going full on reddish brown. So we're going to go ahead and stay there. Let's go ahead and play with the tint for a minute and I feel like that I went ahead and made it just a little bit more pink and it takes, while they are a little bit more of an olive complexion, this adding some pinks helps it feel just a little bit more human. So I really like the color that we're starting with there. Um, so like I said, we're just right now trying to go towards we're trying to achieve consistency with these images. And then also once we achieve consistency between the three, then we'll work on making them look a little bit more like our reference images. So I'm going to look here and we're going to go ahead. Definitely need some exposure. And the skin is I notice a little bit of yellows and oranges. So let's go ahead and cool this down just a little bit. But he happened to be I remember he was under this bluish light. So we don't need to cool it down too much. We'll go right about there. And then she was under that same light. So if I copy 5950, let's try that. 5950. And it's hard to tell, so let's get that exposure cranked up. And if I go any, I think I want to go just a little bit darker, but I want to bring the shadows up a little bit on her. Okay. And yes, I recognize that these are not great photos. These are just what I had. Um, so the next thing I want to do is I want to, now I noticed that this image is like you see, it looks a little pink. This image looks kind of bluish. And then this image still looks a little yellow. So let's go ahead and cool her down a little bit more. And let's add in a little bit of pink. Let's see where that takes us. That feels a little bit more youthful, going that direction. Let's take his and let's go ahead and add a little bit of pink. And then I think we want to go ahead and go back a little bit warmer. All right, so now in order to find out if I am achieving consistency, I can see here I'm not, and part of that is the dark background there, and I've got a really light background on these two. But I'm going to use this button right here for a reference view. What that does is it takes the image that I'm working on and it puts it on the right, and then I can drag a photo from my selection and I can go ahead and drag it right here. All right, what I want to do though, rather than worrying too much about getting these images consistent with each other and then applying an additional edit on top of those, instead I'm just going to drag over one of these as my reference image. And so immediately I notice that I need to go ahead and make his skin much more pink to match this vibe. And let's go a little bit warmer. And then let's even go a little bit more pink. We've got a really pinkish orangish tint. All right, I noticed that her skin tone overall is very well lit. He's kind of lit from the side, so I'm not going to achieve full consistency, but I want to compare the lit images here with the lit, the highlights here with the highlights here. And I noticed that we're getting pretty close to where I want to be. I'm not going to worry about doing an exact, but I just want it to be in the ballpark. Okay. Let's start there. The next thing I notice is he's got this deep, deep purple. Actually, before we jump too much into color, let's look at the lights and darks. So I notice I've got definitely blown out highlights here, and I've definitely got some blown out highlights here. So that's consistent. When I go and look at my darks, again, you remember I mentioned that the blacks were crushed a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and go into my tone curve, and I'm going to bring these blacks up. Oops. Do this. There we go. I'm going to bring my blacks up. And I'm looking at the darkest part of this image, and I want to compare to the darkest part of this image. So I think I need to bring them up even a little bit more. Really get that matte effect in there. And now I'm going to look, and I've got I've kind of got the pinkish orangish skin, but I want to bring in some of those blues. So I'm going to go and I'm going to look at my color mixer, not my color mixer, I'm sorry. I'm going to look at my color, oh, not that one either, my HSL, which is going to be where it has changed. How did it change? Let's see. Tone curve. Nope. I thought it was under color mixer. I'm sorry. I had it on. It had point color clicked. All right. So I'm on my HSL sliders, and let's look at this purple. So this purple is very, very violet, and I want to bring it more towards kind of a magenta. So I'm going to go to my saturation, and I'm going to bring my purples. I'm sorry, my hue. Bring my purples a little bit more towards my magentas. That's getting a little bit more, that definitely feels like it fits that same vibe a little bit better. And then I also want to look at my blues. You can see there's not any really stark blues in this. And I don't really have, now that I've adjusted things, I don't really have a lot of blue in this image. But let's see if I take my greens and migrate, I'm sorry, my blues, and I do go ahead and migrate those towards the aqua, and I am getting more of a green color. If I reset that, that feels more purple. So I'm going to take that purple out of those blues. I'm going to migrate those over. Let's also migrate the aquas a little bit more. Let's see what that does. Now I'm definitely getting more of a teal. And then my greens, I'm just going to play with these. And I think that if I move my greens towards my aqua, that's going to take some of the yellow out. And then let's play with my yellows here. I don't think I need to do much. Yeah, let's just move those over towards the green. My oranges, let's see what I do here. I think I kind of want to just lightly move them a little bit more. No, I want to leave them. I'll leave my oranges. If I move them towards the red, see how it makes it a lot darker? And it makes more of a contrasty line here. You get closer to banding, and I don't really like that. I like the pink color that comes from it, but I feel like we're getting a little too red there. Let's go ahead and play with the color on the red, and we could maybe go a little bit more red there and get a little, yeah, we'll do just a tad there. Let's go back down to the magentas. And that's more focusing on his skin, and I don't really want to go either direction, so I'm going to reset that. All right, so I noticed that I'm kind of in a similar color space. Again, I don't have enough blues to really pull out much teal in this, but I do have a lot of the pinks. I also noticed that I don't have, she's not a brunette. She's got pretty light hair. Let's look and see if any of these other, no, these other gals also have pretty light hair. So that's one thing I'm not going to really be able to do much with. But let's go up and I noticed that this still has much more mattified effect. So let's start with decreasing the contrast. No, I want to decrease it just a little bit. And then I think I want to take my blacks and I want to pull up a little bit more. Let's actually put the contrast back because there is some depth. I think that looks good. All right, so there's kind of one image. Let's look now at this image, and I'm going to do something very similar. I'm going to adjust my color, bring out some pinks, maybe warm it up a little bit. We definitely need some more exposure. Let's get some more pinks in here. All right, I want to bring my highlights way down. Yep, that definitely helps. All right, a little bit more exposure. Okay, we're getting closer here. All right, let's go down and let's adjust the blacks like we did before. And there's not a whole lot of blacks in this image, so it doesn't really need a lot of work there. But I noticed that there is a lot of depth in the background, and I don't notice a lot of depth in here. So what happens if I take and I kind of bring it a little bit down? There, I've added a little bit of depth there. All right. Next, I want to look at my colors. So just like the last one, we're going to take our purples and make a little bit more magenta, not that much, just a little tweak on the purples. And then maybe the magentas bring back a little bit out of the, nope, let's leave that. It messes with her skin tone too much to change it. All right, let's get my blues. Oh yeah, my blues, I definitely want to bring over, but I'm noticing that they're really, really stark. Oh, that's because I'm working in the hue rather than the, yeah. That's what I want. I want to work in the hue. And then I want to go to the saturation. And I want to take those blues and I want to desaturate them some. Before I desaturate them, let's actually bring the luminance down. Let's do that because they're really hot. So let's bring that down some, and then let's go ahead and bring it back a little bit. All right, I know it's looking funky, but stay with me. We're going to keep playing. All right, adjusting this aqua slider. I actually want to adjust the aqua slider to be a little bit more blue. And then the greens, well, there's not any greens in the image. So we'll leave that. The yellows, not too many of those. The oranges, we could bring in a little bit more pink in the orange, but not too much. And then the reds, we don't want to do too much with either. So the biggest thing here is that this blue has a really stark line. And I do want it to become just a little bit more teal. But I need to deal with this line. So I'm going to go back up here. Let's see what happens if I get rid of that. That doesn't help much. And this is kind of how I edit. I play around with things. If I undo that on the highlights, what if I, remove that? I wonder if you here, you bring it down. Nope, I don't want to do that. But I do want to decrease my contrast. Let's do that. And it definitely doesn't look as smooth. There's definitely a lot of smoothing and that sort of thing going on there that I don't have here. I think we still need some more pink. And now we're getting some of the same color tones as we've got over in the other image. Let me go ahead and bring that exposure up just a little bit more even. Right there, I think. Okay. And this is going to be way different because we are looking at very different types of image here. I definitely want to bring that a lot of pink up in here. Bring that way over there. Increase the exposure a little bit more. Let's decrease our contrast just a little there. I don't want to bring my blacks up that way. I want to go ahead and use my curves. Let's get that matte effect going on. And then let's play with my colors a little bit. See if I can bring out any teals in this image. Make his pants a little bit more teal. That's going to make them rather teal there. We'll go with it. I really notice his watch as well. But that seems to be the only teal I've got. So I really like fully saturating that. Let's play with the aqua slider as well. Okay, there's no aquas, just the blue. And then let's look at lifting the luminance on that. It didn't really change a whole lot. Okay. So that's about all we're going to get on this one. It's not shot in the same vein, so it's going to be, that actually helped it get a lot closer because there we're really crushing those blacks and leaving that color in. I'm going to use that same philosophy on this, bring that down, and then really bring those blacks up. And that really helps it vibe with that image. Same thing over here, rather than having that point there, let's bring it here and let's bring those blacks up. And I think on this, just because of the nature of the image, we need to bring some of that contrast back. She just doesn't have a whole lot of blacks in here. There we go. All right, so now I'm going to look at these images together. I'm going to go back to the library so I can see them all together. And these look really cohesive. This one again, it's just not the same levels of color in there, but you can see I've got a lot of pinks and blues and purples in these two. I could add some other light leaks and things to help make this one. I also notice, yep, she still looks a little bit more human than these two, so let's go ahead and go into this one, develop, and let's move this up as my reference photo. Got too much going on. Let's try that again. Select that. Oh, my computer may be slowing down. All right, let's go up into, you know what we can do here? I'm going to look at the tone curve, and I may add a little bit of pink up here. And that affects the skin a little bit. I'm also going to go down to the oranges in my color mixer. And I'm going to move my oranges just a little bit to the left. Maybe a lot to the left. Let's move the reds a little bit as well. And there we get some consistency between those. That just feels like too much there, doesn't it? Feels like too much on him as well. So I'm going to move his down just a little. Right there. All right. So not perfect, but this at least shows you how you can bring your images in and cull them using your X and P functions. And then you can view a set of images that you've selected. You can also, once you're in the develop module, use a reference image to compare your tones, your colors, your darks, your lights. And this will allow you to do a little bit more consistency in your editing. That's all I've got for today. Thank you guys. If you have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and put those in the group, and we can answer those in the next call. We also have some upcoming events. We've got the Photo Fest coming up in September, I believe. No, August. That's August 24th is Photo Fest. Would love to have you join there. And in September is the Lantern Festival. So that's going to be an evening shoot, and it's going to give us a chance to play around with doing some nighttime, some low light. After that, we have Nightmare on Chicago Street, which is a big Halloween festival, and we'll again, it'll be a night shoot, but we'll play around with some really cool, creepy stuff. And so those are some upcoming shoots that we already have on the books. We also, I'm planning a workshop coming up with Mario Salazar. I don't know if you've heard of him, but if you haven't, you should look him up. I will tell you more about the workshop and more about him in a little bit. Thank you so much for watching. Like I said, ask questions. We'll be happy to answer these on the call. Thanks, y'all.